Hello, look who's with me today.
Yet again, twice in 1 year.
How
weird is that?
Twice in 1 week, I can hardly believe it. Today, we're making Christmas cookies. Because I haven't made Christmas cookies yet, and Mom is starting to nag me. Not nag. Request.
Beg.
Ask.
Beg.
Ask multiple times if I'm gonna make Christmas cookies, when I'm gonna make Christmas cookies.
And I've been begging her to make a very specific kind of cookie.
So I've already started today. Let me show you what I've got, because we're gonna make one kind of cookie together. I've already got some other cookies made over there, but let me flip the camera around and show you what I've got going, because I've already gotten started. She had to run some errands, so yeah. I got started before she came home, and then she wanted to make these together. So we're gonna make some special cookies together, but I wanna show you the other ones first. I made 4 sugar cookies. I'm kidding. I made a ton of sugar cookies, and these are supposed to be, actually, I want you to guess what those are supposed to be.
Are they supposed to be wreaths?
Yes.
With a little bow and
right.
like edges?
Yeah, correct. Do you see it?
Funny.
Yeah, I think we'll just eat that one.
Yeah, we'll just eat that one. That's fine.
He's got a growth.
Now, there's nothing special about these, right? Like this recipe, it's just your basic sugar cookie.
Well, okay, so funny story. These came out of a box.
Oh, that's right. We had that huge box.
Except I added some extra vanilla and some nutmeg.
You like to doctor up recipes even when they come in boxes.
I think it makes them better.
I think you're right. I don't think you're wrong.
So would you eat one of these darker light bulbs?
Oh, these darker light bulbs, okay.
I put a little sprinkle of nutmeg in there because I thought it might make them a little bit more festive. Do you get that? Mmm. I really like it.
Oh my God, that's really good.
Yeah, and so some of them are a little bit overdone because I may or may not have forgotten that they were in the oven.
Sugar cookies should be crisp. So,
and we're gonna be putting frosting on them. And I don't believe in royal icing. I don't like making it. I don't like eating it. I don't like working with it. So I'm gonna make buttercream frosting, which tends to make your cookies a little bit softer because your cookie absorbs the moisture from the frosting. So I think it's okay that they're a little bit more crisp. And when they're crisp like this, they're really fun to dunk in coffee. So I'm okay with this, but these are made, they're just waiting for frosting, but we're gonna make some other cookies. So let's tell them all about our other cookie recipe. I've got all the ingredients out for one batch. So this is 2/3 of a cup of light brown sugar, 2/3 of a cup of molasses. Now it's supposed to be a light molasses. This is a supreme baking molasses. It's very dark. I think it's fine. And then in this bowl, I have some spices. We've got 2 teaspoons of ginger, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, I think it's half a teaspoon of, cardamom, half a teaspoon of clove, and then I added 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg just because
nutmeg is a very important spice.
Well, it's a very holiday spice, and I think that it is going to be fine in here. The recipe doesn't call for it, but I do. So there. 12 tablespoons of butter, cubed, 5.5 cups of flour, and I've already sifted this. This I think is like a half a teaspoon of
baking soda.
Baking soda, thank you. 2 eggs, and then our cookie cutter. So the story behind this cookie, we grew up in mid-Missouri.
Yes, and in the lower half of Missouri, around Branson, there is a big resort called Big Cedar Lodge. And we would go down there. It's a beautiful resort.
We went there, I think, a couple of times when we were younger. Mom had a meeting there, and I think we stayed the night there once during the holiday season when we were young. And for whatever reason, it left a big impression on us.
It's just a nice resort, and they
make cookies shaped like this tree,
that specific
and they're called pepper caker cookies. So it's like a ginger spice sort of cookie. I would not call it a gingerbread cookie.
It's not a gingerbread.
Because it's thinner and more crisp.
Yes.
I'm going to insert a picture of the recipe here, and as you can see, there's like a Swedish legend attached to this cookie. So you hold it in your hand and you tap it to break it, and if it breaks into three pieces, you get to make a wish. So we may do that later, but we are going to make some of these pepper caker cookies.
Because these are my very favorite kinds of cookies.
Yeah, the recipe is not mine, so I'm not going to make a recipe card for this, but since I inserted the picture of the recipe, you should have that. If you live in Missouri, you can go down there, you can buy these. You can buy the cookie cutter, and they attach, or at least they used to.
They used to attach
the recipe card to the cookie cutter. You can also just buy their cookies there.
I mean, if you wanted to,
if you didn't want to make them, but we're gonna make them here. Now, this recipe starts a little bit different because we start on the stove. So I'm gonna have her hold the camera while I cook.
Because you're the brains and I'm just the face.
Yeah. No, that's not true. You're gonna be my tripod.
No, that's true. I'm her human tripod.
She is essential to today's operation.
I am.
So let's get started making some spice cookies and make the house smell really, really good.
Yay!
Yay! So we're gonna start with a saucepan. I do already have the oven preheating to 350 degrees. So into this saucepan, I'm going to put the molasses. Now this kind of molasses that I'm using is not a molasses I would use for anything else because it's not really very sweet. It almost tastes sort of medicinal, but it works for the purpose of this cookie. I think it gives it a darker color and a little bit deeper flavor. So I'm also gonna add my brown sugar and our spices. And then we bring this to a boil. And it smells so good already. Yum.
These kinds of cookies are very, I hate to use the word spicy because that implies like Mexican food is spicy. But these are spicy cookies. They're very spiced. And you can smell it all right now. It smells so good.
We're gonna bring this to a boil because we want that sugar to dissolve. Right now it's very
grainy,
gritty, crunchy, and you want that sugar to melt into this so that it's all a liquid.
That looks like chocolate ganache.
It does not smell like chocolate
No,
ganache.
it doesn't, but that's what it looks like.
I'm so excited for these cookies.
Oh, me too. Now you want to keep it moving while it's on the heat?
I'm always afraid, since it's so dark, I'm always afraid it's gonna burn very quickly. So I like to stir it almost constantly, and it also helps me get a feel for what's happening in the pan. It's really, really thick, so it will start to melt on the bottom closer to the heat sooner than it will on top. And it might melt and then start burning or caramelizing on the bottom before I even notice if I'm not paying attention. So I want to constantly stir it because I can tell you already it's getting thinner, which is what we want.
It looks smoother. You can already tell that it's smoother.
And it's moving around in there much more freely. So we're getting closer, but we do want to bring it to a boil.
So lots of bubbles is what we're looking for.
But I do kind of want to do it sort of slowly because I don't want it to happen so quick that the sugar becomes too crystallized and won't unform. So I want to slowly sort of melt it over like a medium-high heat and then boil it for just a minute, and then we'll promptly remove it from the heat after we've let it boil for about a minute. We are now boiling. We have achieved bubble, bubble, toil, and trouble.
That's the wrong season for this.
Am I toil and you're trouble, or are you toil and I'm trouble?
You're toil, I'm trouble.
Okay. Well, we are gonna let this continue to bubble, bubble for about a minute.
You said that wrong. It's bubble, bubble, bubble.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see on camera, but it sort of looks like a marbled color. It's so
look at all those
pretty.
bubbles.
Yes.
Bubble, bubble.
I'm just gonna continue to stir this.
Make sure it doesn't burn.
Make sure it doesn't burn on the bottom.
Now, are you stirring in any specific fashion? I know with some things you have to stir, you know, go around the outside and cut through the middle.
I want to scrape the sides of the bowl every once in a while, and I want to make sure that I'm scraping the bottom of the bowl, the bottom of the saucepan, everywhere, because if I'm not, I'm afraid it might burn. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting the whole bottom of the saucepan and the side of the saucepan. We're about to take this off the heat.
Very bubbly.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this off, and we're gonna move over here.
Now we have stone countertops, so we can just put it.
Correct.
But if you do not,
I would use a trivet. This is a granite countertop, which is perfect for my purposes right now because I want to bring it down in temperature just a little bit because we're going to add eggs to this. That's not the first thing we're going to add, but before we add the eggs, I want to bring that temperature down just so that it doesn't curdle our eggs. We're trying to make cookies today.
Not scrambled eggs.
Correct. So, can I have you step over there?
Yeah.
All right. I have a great big bowl.
I don't know where we got that bowl, but it's one of the best things that Mom ever got.
And I'm going to add my butter.
All, how much again?
12 tablespoons.
Cubed.
Cubes of butter. So, I'm gonna give this one more stir.
All nice and nestled in there.
And then I'm going to add my molasses sugar spice mix to the butter. And I'm gonna scrape this pan to get everything. Now we're gonna mix in our butter. Now your sugar mixture, I let it cool a little bit, not too much. We want it to melt the butter, but we also don't want to really cook our eggs just yet. So I'm gonna mix this butter in until it's smooth. It might take a little bit of elbow grease, but that's okay. Now the next thing to go in is gonna be our eggies.
And just 2, right?
Just 2. I'm going to break the eggs into the bowl before I put them in the dough because if I break the egg and part of the shell gets in there, I don't want to have to go fishing. So I like to break my egg into a separate bowl. Now my butter came out of here, so I can put my egg in here, it's not a big deal. So I want to break my egg into here and then I can fish through here if I get any shells.
Do you break them in a specific way?
I like to break it on the countertop instead of on the bowl. Because if you break it on the countertop, this is a flat surface. This is kind of pointy, so that's gonna stick into the egg. You've got more likelihood of getting shells if you break it on the side of the bowl. So I tap. And I don't see any shells in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this guy and then mix quickly because I don't want him to cook.
We have escaped the fate of curdle.
There's one. Let's do the other.
Now, as delicious as this might look, I don't recommend eating it at this stage, the way you would with some cookie dough.
Right, I wouldn't eat this. All right, I've cleaned up just a little bit just because it helps me think. So I'm about to start adding my flour. Now, the recipe says to mix your baking soda into 2 cups of flour and then add that to this. I'm just gonna sprinkle in half a cup of flour first into my dough. This has been sifted. I sifted it into this bowl when I measured it. So there's half a cup or so of flour. And then I'm gonna sprinkle in my baking soda. I think the idea is they don't want you to add this to all of that flour just because we don't know if we're gonna need all of this. Now, a humidity of the room that you're baking in has a lot to do with the amount of flour you're gonna use for this recipe. We know we're gonna use probably at least 2 cups. We may need up to 5.5 cups.
We're looking for a consistency of the dough and not necessarily an exact amount of flour inside of it.
Right. So there's half a cup and I'm just gonna slowly add half a cup of flour at a time to this until I have a stiff dough, which is what I'm looking for.
Is there any point where you would want to do this with your hands?
I'm almost there, yes. And I should mention my hands are clean.
Hopefully you have washed your hands before you started doing this. Anytime you bake or cook.
Yeah, just wash your hands. In fact, while you're watching this, go wash your hands. We'll wait. It's sticky.
Sticky.
But that's kind of why you need to feel it with your hands. You want a stiff dough that will hold its shape because we're gonna roll it out.
We're doing cutouts, remember?
If we were gonna do like drop cookies, which you can also do with this.
You could
do a looser dough. Okay.
You think that's good? Now, will it stiffen up as it cools as well?
Correct, it will.
So you don't want it to be the perfect tension and still be warm.
You're not making Play-Doh. All right.
Pat, pat, pat.
So, we've made a nice long
snake
worm
log
of dough.
Oh, a log, like a Yule log.
Almost. So, if you really wanted to, if you don't like rolling out cookies, you could cut this in half or in thirds and wrap it really tight in like parchment paper or wax paper and then in plastic wrap and then freeze it. We've done that before. And
for how long?
6 months, probably a year. But if you cut it and then you wrap it and then, you know, when you go to bake it, if it's frozen, you let it thaw and then you can just slice off rounds and you don't have to roll it out.
Cool.
You just have a bunch of round cookies and it's really pretty easy. But I'm not doing that. I'm going to take half and I'm going to put that in here. No, I need a smaller bowl because that won't fit in the fridge. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator because I want to work with just half of it for right now. So let's roll out some cookies with that and we'll put this in the fridge. Okay, I have a little bit of flour on the countertop, which has been cleaned, but my secret to rolling out cookies is I don't use a whole bunch of flour when I'm rolling out cookies. This is powdered sugar. I think that when you use flour to roll out your cookie dough, it can make them really dense and tough. And I think when you're rolling out cookies, you know, you punch out your cookies, then you peel up, you know, the scraps, and then you can add that to another ball of dough, but you can only use that 2 or maybe 3 times before it gets really, really tough and you don't want to use it anymore. With powdered sugar, it still works almost the same as flour. It's a little less absorbent than flour, but it still works. So I use powdered sugar instead because it doesn't make my cookies quite as tough. So make my dough ball. So I've got my flour on the bottom and then I put some powdered sugar on top and it works for me. I used it for my sugar cookies and now I'm going to use it for my spice cookies.
It's so good. Mmm. Yummy, yummy. Mmm. Mmm. They just make me happy. You know, I used to not like these cookies at all.
Did you know part of the other, like, superstition about these cookies, the Swedish superstition, is that eating these cookies makes you a nicer person?
That's sweet.
There are 2 lines of thought. The spices and the fiber in this make you feel better. So like it reduces stomach acidity and, you know, the spices are warm and they make you happy. The other theory is that...
It's magic.
No.
Oh.
You're too busy eating cookies to say mean things. So...
That's so cute.
You are nicer because you don't have the time to say mean things because you're too busy eating cookies.
That's so sweet. Aww.
Either way, same outcome.
Win-win.
All right, 35 seconds left on the timer. I'm gonna check the cookies. I think they're done. I'm gonna let the ones that were on the bottom shelf go for a couple of minutes. Or maybe, you know, just until I can get those off of the pan and onto a cooling rack, then I'll get the other ones out. So they were really close, but these look done. So let me get these off and then I'll show you the other ones. Woo! Woo!
Warm.
Hot air. All right, so these just came out of the oven. And I don't know if you can tell, they look sort of like, yeah, sort of puffy.
They puff up just slightly and they really don't spread.
No, they don't. They've still got all the definition they had before they went in the oven.
Which is great.
And I did not refrigerate them. I just cut them out and put them on the cookie sheet and put them in the oven.
Oh, they smell so good. They smell like, I told Auburn this, they smell like a Christmas Yule log fire that someone spilled mulled wine into. I wish I had been recording because we're talking and then all of a sudden I just hear her go, ah, I broke his neck.
I broke his neck and I'm really sorry.
That's okay. We'll just eat it.
Mmm, it's even better baked.
They're the perfect spice cookie.
Have the foot.
With the stocking, yeah. Oh, it's warm. Mmm.
So these are thicker and they're almost bready, but I kind of like them that way.
They're good no matter how thick or thin you roll them out, honestly.
Here you go.
Cheers.
What?
What's with that face you were making? Okay, so she took out the last of the trees, but you left the drop cookies in.
Yeah, because they're thicker, so I want to let them cook a little bit longer.
About how much longer?
A couple minutes. 41, and we ate 42, plus the ones in the oven. So, about 4 dozen cookies. It's not bad. All right, we've decorated cookies. They're really, really pretty. I'll show you what they look like, but I was gonna show you making the frosting and decorating the cookies.
We got distracted.
I didn't do that. We had some quality sister time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a really good day making cookies. I hope you guys have a good time making your cookies, and if you try the pepper caker cookies, show me when it's done. If you try making one of these, let us know how it goes, because we love them. Right,
They're
Mom?
my favorites.
One of my
favorites. Yeah, Mom is home now.
So it has been a while. It took me a while to make my frosting. Yeah, I think 3 hours. It's been a while, but we're done. They're beautiful. I'll give you an after shot, but thank you for making some cookies with us, and you'll see us in the next Vlogmas video. Bye.